Okay, whenever you're ready.
It is 6 o'clock, and so I'll call the meeting to order. And Kim, you wanted to say something about public comments?
Yes, I just wanted to see if anyone wanted to make a public comment so that I can go ahead and have my list ready of people to call on for that. Got you, Connie. Anyone on the teams who wants to make a public comment, please speak now. Going once? Going twice? Okay. Thank you.
All right, the next item, I guess, is the minutes from our previous meeting. I think we've all had a chance to look at them. Did anybody have any comments or suggested changes to them?
I move that we adopt the minutes from the last meeting.
Anybody second?
Second.
May I just make one note, which I think is on me from that meeting? It's not a correction, because I may have not been clear. It was not entirely my intent to make the gift policy temporarily limited to our procurement process, but we can worry about that once the procurement process is over, about readopting it for a longer period.
Okay. With that comment, all in favor of?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay. On the public comments, Connie, you have something you want to say?
Yeah. Connie Potter, co-president, League of Women Voters of Arlington and Alexandria City. I just want to compliment everyone on this post-election report. I find these very useful and I collect them. Thank you, Gretchen, and your staff.
You're welcome.
Connie's planning on making a killing at some point in the future. She sells them as collector's items.
All right, next let's move on to determining the ballot order for the primary election. County board.
So the filing deadline for the parties to let us know candidates that qualified for the county board primary was on the 8th, April 8th. And the county board chair, Steve Baker, indicated that 5 candidates filed simultaneously. So when that happens, the electoral board must draw to determine ballot order. So what we have done is we have printed the names of the candidates on sheets of paper, and we will insert them into envelopes of equal size and then put them in our bucket in order to be randomly pulled out of. So I will ask for some assistance while I do this. So the first name we have to go in is Julius J.D. Spain Sr. So I'm just going to fold that up, and Rich, you're going to verify this is empty. And then we will stick it in the thing. Next we have Natalie Roy. So I'm folding it up. And once again, empty. Going in. Henley Peterson. Okay, once again, going in empty. Julie Farnham. Okay, going into an empty envelope. And then last, James DeVita. Going in an empty envelope. So, once again. I don't know who we want to have draw out of the bucket, or if anybody wants to mix it up some more. Okay.
Connie, would you like to?
Sure.
Make a drawing.
Do I open it or just go on?
Yeah, go. Yeah, you can draw.
Henley Peterson.
Lucky winner.
At least I can't remember. Natalie Roy. Julius D. Spain,
Senior.
Senior. Julian
Julie Farnham.
Sue. Yes, James DeVito,
Okay.
and to make sure.
So once again, the ballot order for the county board primary, Democratic primary will be Tinley Peterson, Natalie Roy, JD Spain, Julie Farnham, and James DeVita, in that order. Okay.
Right, and maybe you can let me know as well as anybody else here know, how does the order get determined for races that are not just here?
State board does it.
The Senate, the US Senate, is that the race you're referring to? Okay. So the reason we drew for county board is because that's a local race and because they filed simultaneously. Had they filed at different times in the filing window, they would have gone on the ballot in the order in which they filed. So I believe it was yesterday, the State Board of Elections drew for the Republican primary for US Senate. They had two of the, is it 4 or 5 candidates running for US Senate? They had 2 candidates file simultaneously, so they drew for those. We are not having a primary for the House of Representatives for either party. And we are not having a primary for the Democratic Party on US Senate or the Republican Party for County Board. When we get to a general election, ballot order is based on both party and the time that a candidate files. So what the state board does is once a year, they draw to determine which party will be at the top of the ballot for every election that year. And they probably did that, or they usually do that in July. So I don't know. Yeah. But what that determines, so any candidates that are nominated by a party in a special or a general election, that party, it'll be the same for every election that year, if that makes sense. Independent candidates are on the ballot in the order in which they filed. So school board, because that's an independent office, we do it based on when they drop off paperwork with our office. And so that is, how it's determined. And we don't usually have simultaneous filings for independent candidates. That is usually something reserved for parties. So, because they have a much narrower filing time frame to qualify for a primary. Does that help?
That does help, thank you very much.
I don't have code sections cited, I apologize.
All right. The next item on the agenda is the post-election report. We've already heard one positive comment on that. I want to echo those comments. I thought, reading through it, one of the things that struck me, and great significance, but the parties vote in far different manners. The Democrats are much more likely to vote by mail than Republicans are.
Yep.
I guess that's been true for the last couple of elections.
Yeah.
I also noticed that the great majority of absentee ballots being sent out were being sent out automatically to people who were on the permanent list. And I guess, particularly given the number of people who end up turning in their ballots, is there a sense that people who are on the permanent list are being given an option of getting off the permanent list if they don't want to be on it?
Yes. Do you want me to address that now?
Please.
Okay, so so if any voters are on the permanent absentee ballot list, they do have to fill out a written request to be removed from that list. And we do, so inside the ballot pack is a sticker sheet with some additional information. And we are putting something, because we're going into another dual primary, we might have people who want to change party primaries. So we are putting in additional information in there on if they have questions about changing the election they want to vote in or being removed from the permanent absentee ballot list, they can, information on how to contact us. So that will be included in every ballot this election. In addition, when voters do come in, having been checked in as showing as having been sent a mail ballot, we do have the option to, we do present them with the option to be removed from that permanent absentee ballot list if they want to no longer receive mail ballots. So, but we do see a lot of voters who, they know they're on the list, they sometimes lost their ballot, or it doesn't matter, they want to stay on the list even though they came to vote in person. So.
Okay.
It's their right, so.
I was pleased to see that 88% of chief election officers agreed that that their election officers were appropriately trained, and that 96% agreed that they were given adequate support from main office and rovers on election day. Can you tell me, to the extent that there was 12% not agreeing on the first issue and 4% not agreeing on the second issue, which suggests maybe about 2 precincts out of 54 or whatever, what were the feelings of how things could be improved in the future?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I have not analyzed the data to the same level Alyssa has. Alyssa, have you?
Yes, sorry.
You're fine. No, sorry, we've had some last minute attendees come in, so. Just have to be at them, yeah.
So the 2 data points that you wanted to ask for, can I say?
Yeah, have they provided feedback on how they did, on things we can do to improve training, or why they didn't feel adequately trained, or, yeah.
Sure, yeah, so I can say, and I'm happy to provide the more specific data about this. But they were given a 5-step scale to rate on, and so I believe for both of these questions, everyone who didn't agree or mostly agree was neutral. So we didn't have, I believe, to my memory, anybody saying that they disagreed that their officers were adequately trained. This is, we implemented new online training this election, so I think some chiefs had some feedback about that. I also think there was some inevitable confusion around dual party primaries, people getting used to that, so that's something we're gonna still have to be training about in the summer. I'm happy to provide you with, because we asked for additional comments, so I'm happy to provide the board with additional information about that, but it mostly seemed to be the new things that they were doing this election based on what I was seeing.
And I just want to add that based on my observation of Alyssa's training, I thought we did an excellent job.
Thank you very much.
And if people were not adequately trained, perhaps this could be with people or whatever. So those are my comments on the report. Dominic or Tim, do you have anything to ask about?
I'm good at the moment. I will let Gretchen make her presentation.
Yeah, so with Alwi, with the, are there slides to this? Did she give slides? Also, she did not.
There are slides.
Sorry, when you see the forward. Yes, so as we noted, a couple highlights from the post-election report is we had pretty even turnout in both the Democratic and Republican primary elections, but as Mr. Samp noted, that we did see a change in how the voters in these primaries were voting, with 62% of voters in the Democratic primary voting on election day and 86% of voters in the Republican primary voting on election day. And you can see the main difference in that is the percentage of voters who voted by mail in the Democratic primary. Next slide. That's it. Okay. So also in the report to address our comment on what Mr. Schnapp noted on the permanent absentee ballot mailing list. You are correct that we are mailing out a lot more ballots than we are getting back. One of the things that's not accounted here is the number of ballots that we received back that came back with the change of address on them. And so those we do enter into our system so that those voters are notified that they need to update their address with us. Their status changes in the system. But we do receive every election a large number of ballots back because a voter has moved with the post office and did not update their address with us. Ballots are not forwarded to their new address, and if you happen to have a vacation hold while the ballots go out, then it's possible that your ballot will not make it to you because your ballot, once again, it cannot be forwarded to wherever you happen to be on vacation. But we do have, currently, as of today, we have 12,915 people on the permanent absentee ballot list in some form. 9,124 are Democrat, 1,233 are Republicans, and then 1,781 are unaffiliated with either party. They have not requested a primary ballot for either party. And then I think those are the main highlights from this. So obviously it's a slightly different format this election because it is a dual primary, and that is the equivalent of running 2 elections at the same time. But the 2 elections were very similar in both turnout and the split of voters casting provisional ballots and things like that. So, yeah. Okay.
Any additional comments or questions from anybody about the report?
And the report should be available online, but I will double check to make sure that it is. Yeah, it's available. Connie got hers online. So.
Okay. I don't have any questions. This all looks really great. Thank you for putting together another really good.
Yeah. So the credit goes to Tanya. We compile the data for her, and she's the one that puts the report together.
I would, as a conclusory item, I would again, as I think I have in another election, I move a commendation to Gretchen, Alyssa, and the office staff for another well-run election. Murder, suicide, and the polling location notwithstanding.
We're going to talk about things.
So give me one moment, I'm just writing this down.
All right, I think that sentiment is shared, and then I guess the next item on the agenda is our post-election schedule.
So the reason that we added this to the agenda is because I'm sure some people have noticed that the election is on June 18th, and that is the day before Juneteenth, which is a holiday. So because of this, sometimes deadlines do shift. And so I think we want to have a conversation with the Electoral Board to determine what they wanted their post-election schedule to be. So we did receive guidance from the Department of Elections that I shared with you a couple of weeks ago, with the board a couple of weeks ago, that stated that a lot of the things that we do the day after the election can be postponed until the Thursday after the election if we don't want to meet on Juneteenth, the holiday. And those 2 items are the provisional ballot meeting and starting the canvass. I'll note that Arlington County has, obviously with the ranked choice voting on the ballot, we have an added complication, and that we will need to pull all of the results from all the precincts together before we can run through the rounds for that ranked choice voting office. So even though it is a holiday, I don't know, we already are delaying those round data from elections precincts. So I just want to flag that for your attention in this conversation. So.
My general preference is to try to get everything counted as quickly as possible. What is your recommendation about when we should be?
So what we did last year, because like I said, you can't run the round data, or the recommendation from the Department of Elections is that the subsequent rounds not be run until all of the votes are tabulated. And because we have the legally mandated deadlines of Friday at noon for mail ballots and provisional ballots, we can't adjudicate those until Saturday. Those deadlines aren't shifting. So we still won't have all of our ballots in until that Friday noon deadline. That Friday noon deadline does stay the same. The holiday on Wednesday does not impact that deadline. And then the Saturday deadline for same-day registrations is also remaining the same.
Question.
Yes.
The nice little green receipts we provide people who give us
Yes.
provisional ballots are pre-printed,
Yes.
is my guess. They include a Wednesday
Yes.
statement. How very annoying will it be to have to change that to Thursday?
So like,
Print. Like,
yeah.
So that to say,
Mhm.
it seems like it's more trouble than it's worth to not meet Wednesday at noon, like we're supposed to in the standard course of things. But my question is really, were you planning on having staff here anyway to start the processing and do things?
It's an interesting question. I haven't
I
really
assume
thought
there's
about.
holiday pay that goes into that.
Yes. So to have staff here, anybody who is hourly does get paid holiday pay, which is it's time and a half. It's pretty expensive. So we do, when we've had to work on holidays in the past, we do usually do a skeleton crew, and anybody who's not salaried, who's not wage, gets to work those days.
So can we, my thought would be to have our provisional ballot meeting at noon, do what we can that day.
Which is very short. Do you want to do the canvas? Because that's bringing in a whole crew of people.
That
to
was
do the
my
canvas.
statement would be to postpone the canvas to
Okay.
8 a.m. on Thursday or whenever they normally start.
Okay.
Per some things that I think we all heard, well, the four of us heard at the VIBA meeting, one thing I will say is that if we're going to postpone until Thursday morning, then we can open the canvas at noon when we have the provisional meeting. But that in general, and this is for not just this one, but going forward, that the board should open the canvassing meeting earlier than we have traditionally done. Because some work is being done in the morning before we normally get here, that if we don't want to come in at 8 o'clock in the morning necessarily, we should open the canvassing meeting on Tuesday night before we leave the building, which we are entitled to do. We can do it at any time after 7. Another thing which I raised while we were doing the canvass for the March primary is it would be very nice, and I would like to see if we could do this, getting a feed sort of like what we did with the audit when we did it after last November. The canvas is a public meeting, and to the extent we are not in our private or closed provisional ballot adjudication sessions, to see if we can't have the ability for the public to zoom in and watch the excitement that happens. Everyone wants to be in the room where it happens. Shockingly, I know this is to be determined. I'm not saying that we are going to command that it be so, but I know that given where we tend to do things, that could be a possibility. Particularly the parts of the meeting that we do in this room, which is
that's because the canvas is done across the hall, which does not have a camera.
Right, which would require a sort of setup like we did with the audit, which means like having some sort of camera or sort of rigging it so that you'd be able to see it. That may not be possible It'd be great if we could figure that out by November, maybe not by June, but if we can figure out a way to make that happen by November. But certainly the stuff we do in terms of the canvas in here that isn't the provisional ballots, which is closed.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then, so
that is a request for feasibility.
yes, yeah, my one question would be, because if it's a camera from across room like this, they can zoom in all they want. They're not going to be able to read the materials that are sitting right in front of me. And that was the same thing with the audit. It's because realistically, we want cameras watching the work that we're doing. And that's a much.
Seeing the names and addresses and the personal information.
Well, when we're doing Canvas, that's about going through the tapes and the paperwork. So, yeah. Anyway, and that's I haven't figured out how to do that yet, which is why we aren't doing it. So, yeah. Anyway.
Feasibility.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not feasible. Folks are always welcome to come on down.
Yeah,
and
it
be in
is.
the
They
room.
are. Yeah, no, you
So-
can very much be in the room, and we do get in a presidential election. We will have lawyers in the room from the major campaigns, usually the parties. So.
But I think it's fair for people who zoom in to expect that they're not going to get the full experience. But they get to see what we're doing and that we are doing stuff, and like being able to see that we're looking at the tapes and we're reading. Like, yeah, they can't tell if I'm reading the right numbers, but all four of us in the room would have to be.
Melissa, yeah. Okay.
So
That's a different, yeah. Anyway,
did we make a decision as to whether we want to come in on that Wednesday or not?
that's the item. Let's do this one item at a time. Provisional ballot on Wednesday at noon.
I think we should come and
And
do
that's
it.
for the public hearing piece of it, so that any voter who cast a provisional ballot can come in and say why they think their provisional ballot should be counted. And usually that day, we don't have many to adjudicate, and I probably wouldn't bring the team in to start going. It depends on how many we have, because if we have enough where we're not actually gonna be done by Friday, I need to have people in here. But if we don't have that many, they don't have to come in that day, so. Yeah.
Given that for March, we certainly could have done.
They were done
Right.
done entering everything by Wednesday, so they can get it all done in a day.
The interest of being somewhat circumspect with the public fisc, I would say if we're going to limit the number of people we're going to pay to be here on Wednesday, we should do that. I think we can still come in and do what we need to do with the handful of people, if any, that.
Yeah.
And then we can convene on Thursday in the same way that in the past we've convened on Wednesday, and then probably adjourn until Saturday or Sunday again, the way we did for March.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we had been here every day for the week of the election in March, then it'd be a different story. But we basically did what we could on Wednesday, and then we took 3 days off. Not you guys, the staff were certainly doing things, but we
Yeah.
were.
Yeah, but that is.
Because we had to wait for deadlines to run
Yeah,
themselves out.
and my intention, there are a couple of key things that I really want to have done on Wednesday. And that's, but these are not necessarily items for the electoral board. It's just their time sensitive items. Because we have to go through we should go through the ballots that were collected at precincts, the mail ballots collected at precincts on election day. On the off chance that there are ballots from other jurisdictions in there, we need to get those to those other jurisdictions in order to be counted by Friday. And so that can be a very tight mail deadline to get them turned over to Henrico or Chesterfield.
But at the same time, in theory, like. then
But that
he'll come
doesn't
in
take, that's.
And do a quick flip and
Yeah.
yank anything that's not
Yeah.
ours.
Yeah, that's
And
correct.
worry about the rest.
Yeah, that's a job that takes an hour to do, not a job that takes 9 hours to do.
I think if we're postponing the rest of our things until Thursday, I think the only thing as part of that notice is to let the clerk know that we are invoking that dispensation and that he should not expect
And I
us to
do,
deliver things until
Yeah.
noon or whatever on Thursday.
yeah, and what we did last year, because of ranked choice voting and we need permission to access the data drives that are used by precincts on election day. We actually had the clerk present while we do this because those materials are in the clerk's possession, and the clerk is available on Thursday. Clerk is not available. I got the
Distinct impression that he was not
not
around
available
that
on Wednesday, but the clerk's office can be available on Thursday if we wanted to do that again. And once again, that's part of preserving that chain of custody and the documentation so that that the clerk.
Do you need one or all of us for that?
There was
piece?
one electoral board member that was present last year. We did it in the afternoon, and it doesn't take, and we did, I believe the intention was to invite the candidates, so they could have a representative there if they wanted to watch that process. But it's where you remove the thumb drive, and then we cataloged how many votes we were expecting on those, and then how many were uploaded into the machine, so that we were making sure we weren't losing any votes, so.
Meaning breaking the seals of the red bags.
Yeah, we have to break the seals on the
Okay.
on the envelope sevens.
I'm actually fine with doing that. Provisional ballot meeting at noon Wednesday. Because I don't think we'll be here very long.
It's a short one.
It's a short meeting, and it'll let us get through as much as we possibly can, because we still have to wait for other deadlines.
Yeah, my not meeting on Wednesday will not delay any of the other timelines because those deadlines are still set.
And so in knowing that the clerk of court is not going to be available till Thursday, then that we can just pick up again Thursday. And I'm fine with that. And Gretchen, I would just say, just make sure that you and staff, take the opportunity to take your vacation time later.
Okay. We will definitely take advantage of. I actually think the work might go a little bit faster if we've slept a day than if we go home and not get much sleep. But we do understand that, especially depending on how close the election is for that county board race, we can always make decisions that we think meet the community's needs. Does that make sense?
Okay, so are we making a decision then that we're going to convene at noon for the provisional ballot
Yes.
meeting on Wednesday? And then we're going to postpone the canvass to Thursday. So what time do we want to convene Thursday?
I believe the canvas normally starts at, is it at 8?
Yeah, the staff usually open up envelopes and start going through the paperwork at 8 a.m.
But because we don't have that, in most instances, my impression has been they're not done by noon with all of the precincts.
Well, they don't have to go through one envelope this year,
Oh, yes.
so that should speed things along.
You know what we're.
Yeah, a dual primary is, like I said, it's 2 elections, and the paperwork is a tiny bit more complicated. So, but we can easily, the thing is, we can have them prioritize results first, and do the ballot record report, because that's the one that takes a little bit longer. They can do that in the afternoon, so they should be able to get through the statement of results 1 and 2 that have the results on it, because that's what you guys need. That's the first thing you guys need for Canvas.
So then I would say we conduct the public hearing part of the provisional meeting Wednesday at noon. We then recess until, we will recess until 8 a.m. on Thursday. That does not mean that we are necessarily going to be conducting anything precisely at 8, but that the staff will be here to start that process at 8. We can then, I mean, it's I'm flexible. It's up to you guys if we pick noon again or if we come in earlier or later than that.
And I will check with the clerk too on when their office is available so that we can go into the sevens, the envelope sevens, and get the data drives for the scanners.
I would tentatively say we will reconvene at noon on Thursday,
yeah.
pending confirmation from the clerk that as to their
That time
availability.
works for.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we'll reconvene again on Saturday.
Yes, Saturday, we got the report at 10 a.m. We actually got it pretty early in March.
We came in at noon.
But I think we didn't come in until noon on Sunday. We didn't come in on Saturday.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think we came in on Saturday.
Yeah, we'll be on Sunday.
But I mean, we can come in, I'm fine with coming in on Saturday. I think there was something
But due
going
to
on.
the nature with this election, we can't do the rounds. Like, we're not going to have a winner in that county board race potentially until we get all of the ballots in.
I
My
say that
recommendation
we-
would not be to wait until Sunday, is to come in and try to get them done. on
Saturday at noon.
Yeah, so Saturday. So Saturday at noon,
Yes.
we will reconvene. Okay, so I've got Wednesday at noon for the public part of the provisional ballot meeting. Then after that meeting ends, we will, and I'm not going to put an end time because we don't know how long it'll take. And then we will then recess until Thursday noon pending confirmation from the clerk of court on availability. And then we'll reconvene again on Saturday at noon.
And since I'm not working that morning of Thursday, if you want to do the phone call to go over, I can come in if you want.
I'll be here, I'll be able to be here. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, excellent. We can put you all to work. I would say the clerk's office is probably not going to be ready at 8 a.m.
No, but if they're ready closer to 12, we want to be here at 12. They are like, oh, 3:30 would be fine for us. Like, and we want to push ourselves a little bit later.
And when do you, I assume all the candidates will want to be here when you do your magic pushing of buttons and distributing ballots?
Yeah, so what we did last year is for the tabulation, we decided to, because it was closed, we decided to do preliminary round tabulation Friday afternoon because we had all of the ballots except for same day registration provisional ballots at that point. Which was about 1,000 ballots. And so then we ran it rounds again on Saturday, which were the final data. So there's always that option, is to do the first round Friday. But some of this, like I said, it's hard to know when will the work get done. It's hard for us to know how many mail ballots are we going to get after the election. Is that going to, yeah, so some of this is like wait and see, which I know is really frustrating for everyone involved.
I'm actually fine with waiting until Saturday to just run the rounds.
Okay,
I think it makes more sense.
okay.
I'd only be, the only thing that I'd be like sort of okay with is it's clear that the sort of second round has a, like, if we were to say we have 100 SDRs and the person who came in fifth is more than 100 votes behind the person who came in fourth, you could theoretically run the second round because their votes are going to, like, but I think it's more trouble than it's worth to give people a sense of what it's going to look like when we don't have all the votes in.
Okay.
I do think it worked out very well last time to let people know on Friday, even though they knew it was unofficial, because they were all jumping in line to get a
It
result.
was a really positive atmosphere in the room.
So if there's any way at all possible to do something that is preliminary and then maybe on Monday then doing the official one, I kind of like that.
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly do the same thing that we did last year, is just at 5 p.m. on Friday, plan to do the tabulation without same day registration, without any provisional ballots in there. So, yeah. But, yeah.
Does that bother you to have unofficial?
No, I don't think we're
results?
going to have that many
No, I mean, it's fine because it's,
Provisional.
you know, we were very clear last year that they were unofficial results. So I think that's fine and it lets people see the process.
Yeah, and the reality is the provisional ballot should mirror somewhat how ballots were cast on election day. So no one person should get all 1,000 ballots, all 1,000 provisional votes,
Help
because
us if they're.
so it has to be a really significant margin in order for it to really, but once again, if the margins are tight, we just won't know. So, yeah. Anyway. Okay.
Excitement.
Yeah. With that, I think we have our post-election schedule set. Yeah.
All right, we've got nothing further on the agenda. I was hoping to add to the agenda an item just to again talk about election officers. Is that permissible to add that?
Officers, like EOs?
Yes.
Okay, I thought maybe you said offices, and I was like, oh, we're moving again?
I hope not.
I mean, there's been the constant interest from both parties, I think, in identifying more members of their party and then having them be. I'm assuming that in general, if people are identified, they would get a preference to getting assignments this year. But on the other hand, of course, I think maybe 30 Republicans have been identified, so we're not talking about eliminating any people just simply because there aren't enough people identified as Republicans and Democrats. I would like to, I liked at our meeting in March what I saw from Fairfax County about, first of all, how it seems to me that they have done a very kind of a more comprehensive job of trying to encourage people to, if they do want to identify with a party, to give them that opportunity. I think in 2023, didn't we send something out to election officers and let them know that that was an option if they wanted to do that? I also, Fairfax County said that when people initially sign up as election officers, that they have some language that they use on the application that is different than the kind of the generic application that is from the state that we use, that application says to election officers, if you want to identify with a party, that may help you in getting assignments, and that they perhaps do get more people, therefore identifying with the party, with a party. So I just throw that out there as something to consider. First of all, I would certainly encourage your office to again do as you did in 2023 and contact election officers and tell them of the opportunity to announce their affiliation with the party, and then secondly to see what could be done in the future when people sign up to be told that they do have that option to identify with the party. And one of the things that I know that various people, including Frank Busby, has recommended is that if one, obviously we want people who are chiefs and assistant chiefs to be experienced workers who know what they're doing, but that if there is a way to, in an effort perhaps that I don't think that at the moment there are many chiefs and assistant chiefs who identify as Republicans, if there would be a way to say, okay, once you have been an election officer for a couple of elections, we encourage you to submit your name to become an assistant and then maybe eventually a chief, and to be told that given that we are supposed to the extent practicable, make sure that either the chief or the assistant is we had one from each party, but therefore to encourage the limited number of people we have at the moment who are affiliated with the party, to encourage them to consider becoming somebody in those positions.
So I want to make one thing very clear. Election officers and their appointments are an electoral board function. Our office will do whatever the electoral board instructs us to do. I want to make that very clear. So whatever you want us to do, we are more than willing and happy, like we will do.
Yeah, if I may, with Steve having now left as well, and our normal Republican visitors at their congressional district convention, I don't know if he mentioned it to Rich, but I had a very somewhat long conversation with Frank about the issue yesterday, maybe 2 days ago. Some of this will have to fall on the parties to push people. It's not the office's responsibility. It's not even our responsibility to make sure that the parties get people to us, technically. I do also agree that some method of allowing people who sign up to signal where they would like their name sent would be good. I would move, Madam Secretary, I'd prep you. I would move that we refer to a committee for now consisting of me, the task of doing a little exploration. I know that Fairfax is not the only county that does something of this sort. I spoke to someone while we were in Hot Springs. I did speak to someone from the city of Norfolk, as well as 2 of the board members from Alexandria City who have similar setups. I know Fairfax, given what we heard, Fairfax may not be the model because they have the money for a whole sort of system to make this work smoothly. So I would like to talk to some people who don't have that kind of money and that kind of system and see how it works for them.
And I think
and I will report back.
Yeah, when Fairfax County was presenting, while they don't have an issue achieving parity, they don't have enough workers.
Right.
So my question is, how much of an effort to achieve parity have they chased away workers who don't want to affiliate with either party? And that's a concern, like having enough people to run an election, it should be a priority. That's, as a general registrar, that's what my legal responsibility is.
Also,
ensuring we have enough
part of the issue also is that their system for when people do make their selection and getting it out to the parties is in some respects automated in a way that we would not be able to replicate because we just don't have. I think I've asked you before, even before I was on the board, and you said it's astronomically expensive and we just couldn't possibly have that system. But if Alexandria and the city of Norfolk, who are, I don't think, they're large, well, Norfolk is large-ish, but they, I don't think, are throwing money around. I did not get the impression that they have a sophisticated system as Fairfax. I'm happy to go out, reach out to those people, as I've already had conversations with them at the BIBA meeting, ask them how they do it and how it's worked for them, and I will report back in advance of the May meeting.
All right, Donna, can I have you just restate the motion?
So the motion is to refer to a committee consisting of the vice chair. The question, a study of the feasibility of, how to put it, increasing the degree to which the board and the office will participate in the
5 words or less.
Fine.
To conduct a study on.
To conduct a study on the issue of party affiliation for election officers.
Thank you.
I would second.
I
would second that motion. Do we have
All
any
right,
discussion?
hold on. I'm still writing this out.
Thank you for keeping me in line,
Yeah.
Gretchen.
Don't worry, there will be a video, Kim.
To conduct a study. EO party affiliation. All right.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
And we'll see what we come up with. I will also say, this is not part of the motion, but I will also say that part of that study may also be, you may want to clue Steve in of contacting both sides of the aisle
Right.
about their thoughts and how they would see it working and what they could handle. Like, it's all great for us to set up a process. If they're like, we can't deal with that, then it doesn't do us or them any good.
All right, well, I second the motion and I now open it up for any discussion. Let me just say, my one item discussion, I agree with Gretchen that as much as we want to comply with state law about having parity, we also want to make absolutely sure we have enough workers. And so to the extent, I don't think people would necessarily be scared away from using election officers because we're asking questions about affiliation, particularly if we make it clear
Yeah.
that nobody has to
They
affiliate.
do leave.
I would actually, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, but I think we ought to ask Norfolk and Alexandria if we have, if that does scare people away.
I would say also we are near the federal government, and many federal government workers cannot together.
Right. And I think we should make it clear, nobody
Yeah.
has to affiliate if they don't
Yeah.
want to.
Anyway, so
Yeah,
we'll
we'll
revisit
look at
this in May as an agenda item.
Yes.
Is that, thank you.
All right.
Okay,
That
so this is a motion. We got a second, so let's do all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Okay.
One other item that I think maybe we ought to bring up, although we don't have to, Kim has very nicely put together a letter to the county board. And then you mentioned some of those same subjects during the budget presentation last week. I think probably a letter of some kind, just to understand that we're here to help them do what they need to do in this area. But is there any suggestions from anybody about tweaking the language of the letter that we circulated? All right, in the absence of any discussion, I would move that we send out the letter and under whose signature would it be under, do you think?
Kim's.
Kim.
The
I move
secretary.
that the secretary send her letter to the county board in the form that she has circulated to us in the last day.
Second. Sorry.
Thank you. No, you're good.
Just realized that was a motion.
That's all right. And just as part of the discussion, I'd like to send it as an email because it has the links, but I'll also have a printed version of it that I can hand over.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the last item is for those on the line and Connie here, and hopefully for Scott, who probably will watch this meeting afterwards. I would just like to announce and congratulate Kim on being elected the Northern District Director for the Virginia Electoral Board Association. So she will be on the ground as part of the board for Viva for it's a 2-year term, right?
Yeah.
So we'll have some real influence now.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm very excited. I know there's a lot of discussion about where the meeting in September is going to be. More to come.
They don't like Arlington traffic, do they?
I don't like Fauquier traffic.
I was actually a little bit disappointed when we were talking about whether we'd be able to move it closer, about just how expansive the Northern District is geographically. It does go all the way over to the West Virginia border.
Shenandoah.
Yeah.
It's not what you think of as Northern Virginia. It's
No,
a
it
lot
is.
bigger than that. And
It's
so
like the northern
we
part
are
of
not the
Virginia.
center point of this district.
It's West Virginia.
It's way out.
Clark, Shenandoah, Madison.
Yeah, I mean, out almost to the point of Hot Springs, where it took us 3.5 hours to get to. So, the county just north of Bath County, which is where Hot Springs is part of our district. So, I'm guessing that Arlington is not going to be hosting a district meeting in the near future.
All right, are there any other items before we move to adjourn? Hearing none, it's 6:55, and I declare, or I guess I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second,
All in favor?
I,
We are adjourned, thank you.
Julie, quick question.